panel is about a health realization model, how this understanding is being shared in different treatment centers all over the place that work in different ways. So yeah, I think it's going to be really great. It's a perfect sort of segue from what we've been talking about to really see how the nuts and bolts a little more of how this is applied in different places. So I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you all who are here from 4 different treatment centers around the country and in the UK. I should not include you as part of the US. You broke off from the US a few number of years ago. Oh, wait a minute, we broke off from you. Anyway, this is again part of the dream coming true for me, is to see how this powerful understanding is going out on the front lines of helping people with addiction. And in the Twin Cities here locally, I've worked with a lot of different treatment centers, Twin Town and Cedar Ridge, Mavis, and I've done training there, and many other people. But currently what we have is these 4 treatment centers that are taking this, what we call a health recovery model, as opposed to a disease model of treatment, to the focus be to bring health out of people and help understand how to move beyond recovery to recovered. So I don't have any particular order in mind, but since Jacqueline is sitting right next to me on the Hollywood Squares here, I'd ask you to talk. And when you all talk, what I'd really like you to talk from is, from your heart about just a little bit about your program, who your clients are, and just a little bit of how each program is unique, who you serve, how it came to be that you were utilizing this understanding to help other people. But most importantly, how this is making a difference, how this is creating an atmosphere where that transformational experience is more likely to happen. How does the principles, the staff embodying the principles, how does that create the atmosphere where these little butterflies can come out of their cocoon? So that's all the guidance I'll give you.
It's good guidance. So I'll go first, Derek, and then you can, yeah. So I'm Jacqueline Hollows, and I am the founder of Beyond Recovery in the UK. And we work in a butterfly farm, because we work in prison where there are lots and lots of caterpillars waiting to metamorphosize. I told a little bit about my story earlier, and after that moment in the park, that started me working in the community with various addiction recovery programs and so on. And I heard Mavis during the break mention that she just, this is what I took away from what she was saying, she basically just showed up and everything else followed. And that feels like what it was like for me, working there. I got introduced to somebody who worked in prison in the substance misuse program. And he happened to have read a book by Richard Carlson, Stop Thinking and Start Living. And so he sort of got what I was talking about. He thought that Richard Carlson taught SID. Obviously I put him right. And so he was interested, and again, this was after about 2 years of working voluntary in the community, and he asked me to do a proposal to work with the people his clients in prison who had addiction issues. And again, serendipitously, there happened to be an underspend in the local council, and the prison's drug program had closed down. So they ended up asking me to put in a proposal for a 12 months pilot program. And they asked me to evidence the outcomes. So I ended up doing a research-based program and working with all these people. So lots of things came together to make that happen. When I first started working in prison, I had read the Serenity Principle, and I took in pages and pages of notes and diagrams from Joe's book. And every week I'd show up with all my, you know, big bag of notes and so on. And after a while, what I noticed is the people that I was working with responded to when I was listening to them, and they responded to the sincerity of, I would say, I'm not the expert in your life, you're the expert. I mean, they'd look at me a bit strange, you know, like I was a very strange woman, but I would say, you know, you're the one with the answers, and I'm just here to try and help you find that, but I don't know how we're going to do that. So I was very green and very naive, but I was passionate because I had seen insightfully that everybody has potential and everybody is okay. And I just wanted other people to know that. And so that's how I started, and I learned along the way. We've now got 3 research papers evidencing the impacts on depression, anxiety, stopping the use of substances. In the whole prison, the illegal and legal substances went down. The director came round one day to say, why are there less legal drugs being used here? Why, you know, what is happening? So, and obviously the things that increased were well-being, pro-social behaviour, and purpose in life. And the most astonishing part for me was that the simpler that I got, and the clearer that I got, and the more that I came from my heart, the bigger the impact. So eventually I threw away the books, I threw away the notes, the bits of paper, and I just showed up as me and shared what I knew. And when I say that, you know, I just shared whatever it was that I thought I should share in the moment. It's certainly challenging working in a system that doesn't think like we do. I've worked in high security prisons with people with sexual offences, and the whole system is set up to believe that people can't change and that they're basically born bad. So there's certainly challenges around that, and most of the system likes CBT, so they don't take well to our approach until they start seeing the impact. And also when they see that, I worked with a group of wonderful facilitators over the last few years, and when they see us leaving prison laughing and high on happiness and joy of what we've seen in group, I've had many staff say, what are you guys on? Like, what do you do? I've never seen, and skipping into prison, this is going to be the best day of our life. And they started to get curious. So I do now work with some staff, and you know, I do get asked about our wellbeing programs for staff. So that's been another impact. But when you go into a new prison, you have to start that all over again. And then Joe said earlier about the delights, asked us to think about the delights, and there's so many. I remember one Christmas, there was a lad on, we have a Saturday group, and the lads come on our Saturday group, and a lad that we haven't seen for a long time turned up today, and is a bit of a wild one. And we had a Christmas group with this bunch of guys, in some of them are here now, and I made them all close their eyes because I wanted to give them I'm not really allowed to say it was a present, but I wanted to give them something as part of their course. And they did not want to close their eyes, but they trusted us, so they did, and they put their hands out, and I gave them all a soft towel. And one of the delights was that this lad that I talked to earlier, 2 years after getting out of prison, he's still got his soft towel. He was so touched by it. And then during that prison group, that Christmas group, we had this tear and share brioche. And you think this is nothing to do with the principles, right? But it was the love that we turned up with and that we felt in the room, and that joy that we felt in the room, that I think helped towards the transformation and the change of those butterflies.
I'll just give a little sign so we can hear from Derek too and the others. But thank you so much. Thank you. Derek, can you unmute?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Derek Mason. I'm project coordinator and facilitator for Beyond Recovery, but I was once a caterpillar. And Jacqueline and Beyond Recovery came into Only Prison, where I was serving a 5-year sentence, and showed me that I didn't have to be like that all my life. I could blossom into something else. So to be here now saying I work for Beyond Recovery as a project coordinator and a mentor, it just means so much to me to be able to give back. And it's sort of like proof in action of the 3 principles that it does actually work. And it's about how it worked for me and how I take it forward to make it work for other people or show other people what they have. It goes back to what Jacqueline said. It's just, you've got lots of different courses in prison, lots of different paperwork to fill out, and it's all the same. It's all just paperwork, tick the right box. But this one seemed a bit different. This was just about just a feeling and going with looking into yourself, and anything goes, anything is however you see it. And for me, that was something that like I saw that from the people who were facilitating. They came in and they told stories of how they were vulnerable, they used to be depressed, and you don't hear people come in and say that to them places there. So when they drop their guard, you're able to drop your guard a little bit and start to look into yourself. And the moment I started to look into myself and stop looking outside of myself, that for me was when I noticed that it was all coming from me. Everything comes from me. And the reason why I was even in there, which I attributed to somebody else or this person or that group of people, it was all down to me. And I was the one, it was my thinking that put me there. And I didn't have to be my thinking. I didn't have to be a caterpillar or whatever I chose myself to be. No, I could choose to be whatever I wanted to be. And to bring that forward to going into prison, I was fortunate enough for Jacqueline to bring me into prison on the other side of the fence to facilitate a group. And the very first group I facilitated, I thought, you know what, I'm nervous. What am I going to be able to bring? But when we got there, there was an interesting thing happened. There was 2 guys that were on opposite members of a street gang. And unbeknown to us, they were supposed to be security checked, but they wasn't. Something went wrong. So they was in the same group together. And one of them had done the group before, so he had dropped a little bit. He had seen a little thing. And he had his cousin was killed. And he was sitting in the group with the guy that actually got accused of killing his cousin. And he came in and he just started to share, my cousin died in my arms, I held him, and you know what? The way I see it, he just shared from the heart and just basically told the other guy, this ain't the life that I really chose. I want my cousin to be alive, but doing something to the person who got accused of doing it, that's not really gonna bring my cousin back because I got too much love. Just because he'd had a few sessions before, he was tuned in to know I've got too much love to wanna regurgitate hate into the world. And the guy was sitting there, he didn't say nothing throughout the whole session. He just sat there quiet while he was sharing. And at the end of the session, he got up and he came over to the other guy and he said, do you know what? I was the one who was accused for killing your cousin, you know. And he looked at him and he's like, standoffish, like, okay. And he said, do you know what? But I'm just like you. I don't want to do that. And he shared the real experience of what happened. He didn't even want to be there on that day. He was telling the other person to just behave and go, let's leave. And he said he was having nightmares. He was having sleepless nights. He said the way he felt, or the way he just shared to him, and the two of them looked at each other and just said, you know what? We don't need to do this anymore. They saw something else. Whereas, I don't know, maybe a day earlier, if they would have seen each other on the wings, it would have been going at each other. No questions asked. But because they was allowed to drop into that little bit of space to see something different, then that is just an example of what this understanding can do. And I'm proof in action. And when I see something like that, I know that that is proof in action. And that just makes me redouble my efforts to try and get into as much people as possible. That they like Jacqueline said, we work at a caterpillar farm and they can all be butterflies. I'm not the full butterfly yet. I'm still working, but there's loads of caterpillars out there that we can transform, or we can show how they transform, because it all comes from ourselves. I can't do nothing to make nobody else change. I can just be the change that I want to see in other people. And I love this Sid quote. If we could just show them not to be afraid of their experience, then I know I've paraphrased that wrong, but yeah, along those lines, then that's all we need. And that's why I enjoy doing what I'm doing. And I think I've reached my 5 minutes. So
Thank you, Derek. That was.
Thank you, Joe, for allowing me to share, man.
You're a beautiful butterfly. So who would like to go next? Do we have Gulf Breeze or Farnham or Malibu? Is it Malibu Meadow? Meadows at Malibu now? I can't remember your new title.
Yeah, well, we're going to be Meadows Malibu actually by the end of this month, but we're sort of technically still Broad Beach Recovery Center today.
Cassie Copperfield.
Yes. With that, should I go? Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Cassie. Just introduce yourself and
Okay.
talk about your program and how it's unique in your mind.
Okay. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Cassie Copperfield, and I'm the Executive Director of Broad Beach Recovery Center, as we were saying, to be Meadows Malibu. And we're a little 12-bed facility. We've only been around for about 2.5 years, and we're state licensed for detox and residential treatment. And we're lucky to be in a really incredibly beautiful setting, as is insinuated by the Malibu location. So we're right on a hillside with this incredible view of the ocean. So we're lucky to kind of be in that setting that immediately in itself just feels healing. And that was by no accident. So the reason we even exist, and the reason Three Principles is part of who we are, is that I used to work at another treatment center, and I kind of like to see this as sort of me falling into this industry in itself. I was brought up in an alcoholic home. I married an alcoholic, now 11 years sober. I sort of never had any intention in working in this industry, but sort of fell into it, as I said. And then being in this industry and having been working in it for about 10 years, I then sort of fell into the opportunity to start a treatment center. And the previous treatment center that I was working at, there was a now incredibly amazing Three Principles practitioner called Rohini Ross, who at the time was one of our therapists. And right around when she started to kind of really gain a deeper and deeper understanding in this community, she started to bring her insights into the facility. And I don't think any of us knew what the Three Principles was. I can certainly say for myself that I didn't. But it was definitely recognized that something was different, something was going right, something was good in what she was bringing. And then a referral source who works with a lot of professional athletes, as well as sort of high-end executives who have substance abuse issues. He, with his recognition of kind of the work that was happening with Rohini, he wanted to start a facility where we would be able to bring this understanding into the facility more and more. So that was kind of where the idea was sparked, and I was kind of on the sideline hearing sort of conversations here and there. And at the time I was actually heavily pregnant. And so I went on maternity leave, had a baby, and with about a 3-month-old, 3-month-old, it sort of all started to develop into a reality. And so I showed up with keys to an empty facility, beautiful place, as I said, with this incredible view. Still had no idea what the 3 principles were, other than maybe like Googling it and kind of getting a vague idea. But now I was there with the keys, needing to start a facility. So the next thing was, okay, what are the 3 principles? Because I'm supposed to be starting a facility that's 3 principles. And so Rohini pointed me back to a book I had kind of touched upon a little, met Amy Johnson's Little Book of Big Change. And having just had a baby and having a newborn and seeing all of the wisdom and life that was in this perfect human being, they come out with everything they need. I think I was just incredibly open at that moment. And so I took all of the information in a completely different way, and it landed in a completely different way. And yeah, so that was me then falling into the principles and this understanding. And then everything has kind of just evolved from there. So I would say the entire setting and what makes us different from other places is the tone of who we are. Forget about all the details or clinically what we do or don't do. And Kylie Kolb, our clinical director, will kind of speak a little bit to the clinical stuff and some of the stuff we got to see, with our clients. But the tone of who we are is hopefully something that every client feels the second they step through the doors. We want them to feel love. We want them to feel the warmth. We want them to feel heard. We don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. Our whole deal is that we want to meet that person where they're at when they walk through the door. We don't have like a pre-designed program. And to get to that place, it's been a lot of work around trusting the way life just lives through us all, the way that, because it really has been, the whole experience and the whole development of this place really has been as if someone's just like laying bricks right on the path in front of me and I'm just walking it. That's kind of how I like to like to envision it. It's just so glaringly obvious that I've had nothing to do with it. It's just kind of just kept evolving and evolving. And but there's been a lot of selection around like how we choose staff, because we don't try and find people who already have, experience necessarily in the principles. It's more of, we sit down and we meet a person, who happens to be an RN or an LVN or an LCSW or MFT or whatever it is. And we're kind of looking for the feeling, like you hear a lot in this. And so that's kind of how we find our staff. And then from there, it's a lot of trust. It's a lot of trusting our wisdom. It's a lot of trusting the client in front of us, their wisdom. Again, without kind of getting into all of the details, we do have a lot of tools and, a lot of techniques, but there's a different tone behind the way that they are used, because underneath it all is knowing that none of it's needed. And hopefully that's what our clients are feeling. We're hopefully getting to a place where they can see through their thinking and they can see to their wisdom. And we're really, we're never keeping our minds closed as to what might get them to that place. I have no idea if I just spoke for 30 seconds or 5-10 minutes.
Probably just wrap it up so that Kylie can share from the clinical director's viewpoint.
Okay. You know, I had like a timer ready to hit and I never pressed it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think I have anything to add. I just really, hopefully you're all picking up on the tone that we just, you know, our goal is just to be love and represent that, because ultimately that's what the principles are. That's what life is, right? So, yeah, Kylie.
Thanks, Cassie. Good to see you again.
You too.
Yeah, with a new baby.
Yes, with the new baby. She's behind me.
Well, thank you very much, Cassie. Hi, everyone. My name is Kylie Kolb. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and also the clinical director at Broad Beach Recovery Center, soon to be Meadows Malibu. And to sort of piggyback on Cassie's story, just under 3 years ago, this job opportunity presented itself, and I was informed that we were going to be stemming from this 3 principles understanding, which I had no knowledge of, but was also quite exciting. I come from a 12-step background. I actually went through a treatment center and in recovery myself. So coming into this, you know, I had an open mind and was interested in learning and was pointing in the direction of Amy's book, which for me, I started to understand the power of thought and habit, and even that, you know, an urge is nothing more than a big thought. And I thought, wow, what a you know, what understanding this is, and what great information and a different way to think of it. And then I read Joe's book, The Serenity Principle, and for me, that's really where the worlds came together. And I saw, holy cow, these can live as one. And so as I'm gaining a better understanding of this, we're opening the doors to what started out as a 6-bed facility and now has expanded to 12, but we're very client-centered, and we don't have a cookie cutter model or anything like that. It's actually, we let the clients show us what, you know, we need to point them toward. And we put all, you know, the Serenity Principle and the Little Book of Big Change in their welcome baskets. We give them a sheet that has a list of YouTube clips, all that are 3 principles based. And they look at us and ask us these questions and say, what is the 3 principles? What is this? And we just sort of point them toward, you know, the books and conversations and things like that, so they can gain their own understanding, which I think is something that we've all learned through this. And it's been amazing, you know, working with professional athletes and higher level executives, like Cassie said. They come in with, you know, this willpower approach, or using their intellect, or, you know, all these other tools and things like that from the outside in that they've relied on for their own success, and yet being told that they have everything they need within them, that they're not broken, that they don't need to be fixed. You just see this ease come about. You know, what seems quite baffling and simple, I think, in comparison. I know it certainly was for me, but it has just been, you know, remarkable, and even deepened my understanding and my belief in the staff. And, you know, oftentimes I think the clients want more. They want, you know, they want worksheets, or they want this, they want things that are going to speed up their intellect. But our entire program is geared towards slowing them down and quieting the mind. You know, we have a holistic approach that includes sound therapy and breath work and yoga, and then individual therapy and all of these things. And the one thing that I love about our treatment center is that we don't rule anything out. We don't know what it's going to take. We don't know what's going to work with each person. But what we do know is that they need to start with themselves. And, you know, and I think a lot, for me, at least with the 12-step program, it was about the solution, it was about the action, it was about the external. And now it was, you were given permission to look to the inside and look to the feeling and look to the understanding. And, you know, one thing that I always sort of say to clients and clinicians and whatnot is if you're thinking, you're not necessarily in your feeling, and sort of dropping them out of their intellect. And, you know, again, the word magic has been tossed around, and that's truly been my experience with this understanding, and so grateful that we are able to offer this and to teach and to understand and work together as one. And, you know, so grateful to be a part of this conference. And thank you, you know, Joe and Amy, for putting this together and giving us an opportunity to all come together and spread the word. So thank you.
Thank you, Kylie. So nice to meet you. And it's just so interesting to see the breadth of how the principles fit anywhere, whether you're working in a high-end treatment center or a troubled community with a huge drug and violence problem, or a Gulf breeze recovery on the beaches of Florida that just got hit by a hurricane. It just, the principles travel well.
Yeah.
Travel well wherever we are. So why don't we allow Danielle, I don't think there's just you, Danielle, right? Because Barnett, unfortunately, his house got really hit by the hurricane. So he's picking up debris and trying to put his house back together. And he couldn't make it today, but Danielle will certainly fill his shoes quite well. So Danielle, you want to say something so you appear?
Yeah, so I'm Danielle Ganaw. I'm the clinical director at Gulf Breeze Recovery. I've been with Gulf Breeze Recovery since its inception about 7 years ago. And I feel really fortunate that the 3 principles has been our foundation for treatment the entire time. So it's not an unlearning. We are a residential center that has 25 beds, 5 detox beds. And we just this year have incorporated an intensive outpatient to our program as well. And pretty quickly after doing that, we had COVID hit. So we had to put our intensive outpatient online so that we didn't have our residential and our outpatient mixing together and people getting sick. And then now just recently we've went through a hurricane and a storm. And I'm so grateful that we have this understanding for, ourselves, just for what we've went through, for our staff, and then being able to share that with our guests. And, and I think especially, this year with all the challenges, it really comes through that you see that health in yourself and your staff. And so we've just went through this hurricane, and I have multiple staff members that have had damage to their houses. But they're showing up for their clients on a Saturday, and I didn't ask them to. They're going in, they're asking their team members if they can see their clients too. They're, jumping in and offering if people need a place to stay, or people that don't have power, if they can help them do laundry. Or the nice thing about Gulf Breeze Recovery is it's like a family. Sometimes dysfunctional at times, I guess, like any family, but the staff member has such care and concern. And I think because we have the foundation of the principles, we have that foundation of love and compassion and caring for each other. And so when people need something quickly, they step in and help. It makes my job a lot easier. And the clients notice, the clients feel it. The clients feel the love that the staff has for each other and the way that we treat each other, and we transcend that into our guests. And our guests feel that love and the compassion, and they like to be part of the GBR family too. And so when people come into our treatment center, immediately we're pointing at their light and their health, and that they have that too. And we're living it, so they see, maybe there's some truth in this. They're not just talking to this point, they're really living this themselves. And then, some people, most people in addiction, unfortunately, come in and think, oh, I'm broken, there's something wrong with me. And we're pointing to them and saying, no, you're healthy, you're well. And we're pointing to that light that's within them. And gradually they begin to see it themselves. They begin to see that light and health that we see. And they begin to transform, like the butterfly that you were talking about, Joe. They begin to have their own insights and transform. We have a detox unit, so a lot of times people come in and they're pretty sick. And you see their faces over time just begin to transform. And because they stay with us for 8 weeks, the majority of them, they're just glowing by the time that they leave. You see that physical transformation that takes place. And then we integrate that also with family work, as you heard from some of our graduates yesterday, that their families can be impacted greatly as well. We have a family support group that I help start so that the families can join weekly and learn a little bit about the principles and what we're sharing. And then we offer family counseling sessions with their counselors, and then we offer a family follow-up with that as well. So, you're not just treating the person in treatment, we offer treatment to the family and as a unit, so that when they go home, I think it gives them a better opportunity for change in their life. So, it's just such a beautiful privilege to be able to be a part of their transformation and to be able to witness this, and hearing everybody's stories and getting to see it's just a reminder of all this that's going out in our communities and all that's happening, and at a time now where it's really needed for people, for their health and their state of mind. And there's natural disasters that are happening, and there's pandemics that are happening, and to be able to come back inside and know that where your health and wellness comes from, to know that you have this beautiful gift that's within you, and that you don't need anything outside of you to make you feel good. We talk about addiction as innocently looking outside yourself to feel good, thinking that this thing out here is what's going to make you feel better, and I need this thing. So, when people really wake up to the fact that it's not this thing out here outside of us that makes us feel good, then the addiction can fall away by nature. It becomes an implication, and their life improves in all areas as they see that, as they see what we're pointing to. Their health and wellness comes back within them. They see it. It was already there, and it's like the storm has come in, and the storm goes away. All the storm clouds pass, and their health and resilience is there. It was behind the storm. But it was already within them, and they're able to see that.
A very pertinent metaphor, Danielle, for your circumstance.
Very pertinent, very pertinent. The sun was behind the clouds.
The wall of the eye passed right through Gulf Breeze Recovery. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Yeah. So I was really lucky. All my life, since I met Sid, I really wanted the opportunity to be in the ground level of helping to design a treatment center. So when Barnett and Debbie Trent, who used to be the clinical director there before Danielle, called me and said, "Would you come down? And we've got a building, and we want this all to be on the three principles." So my wife and I showed up, and it was all torn. There were workmen everywhere, and they were all remodeling it. It was just dust and just a shell of a building, no staff, just an idea. And to see their commitment to really not just putting the name that they were doing the three principles, to be committed to staff development. And to me, that was the whole key to the success of this program. The healthier the staff, the more love there is in the staff, the more understanding and insight that they have for themselves, and being committed to that and ongoing, because your staff is always turning over, there's always new people. That development, to me, really kept that butterfly farm really healthy and resilient, even during a hurricane or the COVID-19 pandemic. Just to see how you guys have weathered all of that and been an example of, this is resilience in action. This is how it works. Watch this. You didn't have to say it, you just lived it. So I just think that's so key to anybody who's thinking of starting a program, that the program, the nuts and bolts is secondary to the feeling and the understanding of the staff. So is there anything else you want to add, Tanya?
Well, a couple of things with that. You can't teach what you don't know. So it's so key for us that the staff get this for themselves, and then they teach from what they know, and knowing that that's enough. we had to evacuate our center because of the storm, and we spent a few days in a hotel, and our staff just was so positive and had a great attitude, and that transcended down to our guests. They knew that we were just had a positive, upbeat attitude, and that transcended down to them and kept them calm, and they had their basic needs met. Everybody jumped in, and we had MREs, but we didn't want to feed them MREs. So our chef was there trying to order food from, somewhere so that they didn't have to eat MREs, that we could eat food, and go into the store for them. And we had staff up on the night shift watching out for things. And it just happened so naturally. It's not effortful. It makes my job easy because when you have your own health and well-being, when you have less on your mind, when you by nature have less stress, you show up so much better as an employee, and you have so much more to give.
Well, thank you, Tanya. And you're such an incredible example to your clinical staff, and everybody on the staff is clinical in a sense, whether it's the janitor or the cook or whatever. Everybody on the staff gets training in the principles, not just the counselors, which is amazing. Anyway, just for sake of time, we should move on to.
I had somebody message a question. Do you want me to hold on to that or answer it?
I didn't see it.
Well, Peter had sent it to me.
Oh.
So it's regarding a study with Gulper's Recovery and Outcome. We're in the process of doing more research with Jean Catherine, but we have done our own, and it's self-report. So, people in addiction don't always tell the truth. But we ask whether people are doing well. So sometimes people may have a hiccup or have struggled. And our data is a little out of date, but it's about 1 year to 2 years old. And people, about a 70 percentile respond to us. And of those, in the 80 percentile report doing well. So even if they had a slip or a hiccup, they've gotten back on track. So that's been a self-report. And we send out text messages to people just to check in on them regularly and ask if they have had any, we call them slips. And if they need anything, if we can connect them to resources, those kind of things for those graduates that allow us to do that and are willing to follow up. But the guests that stay connected are the ones that do well. We always tell them that this is a journey, not a destination. Like not go to treatment and done, but just to continue looking in this direction.
Great. That's pretty impressive stats, by the way.
Thanks.
So Kathleen, are you?
Hi. Yeah.
Kathleen?
Hi, good to see you. So my name is Kathleen Murphy. I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, also the Senior Vice President at the Farnham Center in New Hampshire. So we are a very large treatment center for New England anyway. We have about 140 inpatient beds. We also have a very vibrant outpatient program that covers the whole spectrum. We have medicated assisted treatment, we have PHP, IOP, and outpatient. So we have, you referenced yesterday, Joe, between all of those programs, yes, very, very much upwards of, 600 clients active in those programs. Our journey to the principals, so Farnham Center has been around since the 80s and was a 12-step ACE program. In 2008, we were acquired by our current parent company, Easter Seals. And at that time, my predecessor, Dr. Cheryl Wilkie, who's still very active in the Three Principles community, she was our leader. And it took about 5 years, and she's very open about this, and that she was, doing for her own wellness, just doing a lot of reading in a lot of different areas. And she came across The Enlightened Gardener, and she read it and it resonated with her like crazy. And she was so excited. So that was about 5 years after she joined us. So we're talking about, 7 years ago or so. And she thought there was something just pulling at her saying, we have to move in this direction from, we were definitely just a 12-step ACE program, a typical, alcohol and drug treatment program that you would find. And then we started to move in this direction. It was not the easiest transition. Danielle, you were talking about it's always been this way with Gulf Breeze. It was not the easiest transition. We had a lot of staff resistance. What are you talking about? I got my master's degree and I know DBT and CBT and, MRT and whatever other, forms of therapy. And it was hard for some of our staff, some of our counselors to, when we said things like, just go in and be really present moment in your group or in your individual session. And, when we're telling them that they don't need to prepare for hours and, prior to going into that group and know exactly what they're going to say. And they're saying, what are you talking about? This is exactly opposite of my training. So that was kind of a wild ride. And I would say, so about 7 years ago, we our leader, Cheryl Wilkie, found the principals, brought in all kinds of speakers. Joe was one of the very earliest ones to come and speak to our entire staff. And we do the same thing with all of our trainings. It's all of the staff. It's counseling staff, admin staff, support staff, janitors, cooks, whoever. Everybody comes to training. And we had to have a lot of people come in, and it was a transition. And about 3 or 4 years ago, we kind of said, we made a push. We said, okay, we're drawing the line in the sand now. We are entirely 3 principals, because in those early years, and me too, I was a counselor in our outpatient department, and I'm like, yeah, the principals, I get it. This is awesome. I'm so into it. And in hindsight, I think back to some of the groups that I facilitated, and I'm like, oh my God, knowing that it was like half 3 principals, half completely opposite of 3 principals. And I'm thinking those poor clients. But it's all innocent, and we were doing the best we could at the time. And just with more learning and more insight, we were able to, like I said, about 3 or 4 years ago, kind of say, okay, this is it. We went through our entire curriculum. We got rid of a lot of old stuff. Like, where the heck did we ever find this? Okay. And we made an entire, a curriculum for every single one of our programs that was entirely principles based. And the training that people have talked about is so important. We've had, Amy has visited our facility to train, and Joe many times, Barb Patterson and the Pettits, and many people. We've been hugely fortunate to have them come out and train our whole staff. We do it a little bit less frequently now because we've had staff with us. Some of them are on this call today who've been with us throughout this whole time. So we're doing a lot more internal training as well now, which is amazing. So it's been a journey. But what we always hear is, our clients coming in and saying, I don't get it. Why didn't anybody teach us this? Why didn't anybody tell me that it was, this simple? When we tell people they're not broken, it's interesting. Most of the time that the reaction to that from the client is really positive, tears sometimes, and I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, you're telling me I'm not broken. I've always thought I was broken. Sometimes it takes a little longer, and a lot, they want to hold on to that victim mentality. Like, what do you mean I'm not broken? Wait a minute, I think I am, because now I can blame it on my this, that, the other thing, all of the whatever diagnosis the person has. So that's kind of an interesting piece that we see the clients transition toward, by the, Danielle, you spoke to this as well. We have, medical detox beds, and then the whole continuum. So when we see clients, 2 months later, a month later, whatever it is, when the light goes off for them, when they have those insights, and we learn as much from them as they do from us. That's the amazing thing, right? It's hugely important that our staff, see this, because they share their own stories. That's how a lot of our groups, inpatient, outpatient, start off. We have some counselors who've been with us a very long time, and who, we call each other, we kind of joke around like, that we're total 3 principles geeks, those of us who've been around for a long time, because we get so excited when we see something, right? And so our counselors will come in and say, go into their group and say, oh, so, today on my drive here, see, this is exactly it. And, they'll tell a personal story that resonates with virtually everybody in the group, of course. Somebody spoke to it earlier. One of the major differences is for our counseling staff, all of our staff, because all of our staff interacts with the clients, right? Our cooks, the maintenance staff, whoever. And for them to know, for the staff to know that they can't be the expert in the client's life. It's so counter to what, those of us who went to graduate school for anything in psychology have been taught. But it makes so much sense. How can I be the expert in Amy? She's in the top left corner, so I'll just pick on her. But how can I be the expert in Amy's life? Like, she can tell me all she wants, but just pointing her back, saying, hold on a second, just what you said right there. I want to dig in there a little bit. And I know Joe talked yesterday about the hot and the cold, that game that my kids play, hotter or colder. And it's exactly that, allowing the feeling to be the barometer. And you see something, the more present, right? The more present we are in that session, the more able we are to just pick up on those very small nuances, that slight shift in feeling in the client, and say, hold on a second, right there. I want to talk about that a little bit more. It's amazing. It really is. So, but it's hard sometimes, especially for newer staff, right? No, I can see it so clearly what Amy needs to do. Obviously, she just needs to do this. What the heck? Why doesn't she see it? But to question, even when, clients rather, leave, AMA against medical advice or against the advice, self-discharge, staff so badly want to get them to stay, right? And part of that, of course, we try to, separate, provide some time between the client's initial thought that I need to get out of here because my girlfriend just called or whoever, whatever just happened externally, I need to get out. But we're really, we train our staff. Sometimes clients should leave treatment. How do I know? There could be something going on that client should leave and go take care of whatever he needs to take care of and then come back. Maybe that's what he needs. I don't know because I'm not the expert, but I guarantee that client knows. And if we just put some pause, Joe, I know you want to leave. Hey, come take a walk with me for 10 minutes, that kind of stuff. And just give some separation between, that thought and then their final choice, pointing them back toward their wisdom.
Kathleen, sorry,
Yeah.
I know I'm interrupting you in the middle of a thought, but I want to leave time for a few questions before we move into our next session. But it's so good to see you, and God, it's so great the work you're doing and how different each of these programs is, how unique and where you're at in your evolution. And it would be really cool if the four groups could share what they're learning somehow with each other as you go along. Because sometimes you can feel like, oh, I'm all alone in this, but you guys are all doing the same thing.
Yeah. And we're working with Jean Catherine as well right now for the research project. So we're a year in with her and just renewed another contract for a year. So hopefully we will get to, share a little bit with Gulf Breeze and see where we're all heading.
So we can become a certified, what do you call it?
Evidence-based.
Evidence-based treatment.
Yeah,
That's
evidence-based.
Yeah. Well, any questions that people have, just raise your hand. And Peter, can you help me with this?
Yeah, there's a question from Roger. Take you off mute, Roger.
We've just got about 5 minutes, so.
Go ahead, Roger.
Roger? Where's Roger?
Looks like his mic's not working.
Anybody else?
He did put it in the chat bar, so I can just read the question. He says, any more extensive follow-up in all these 4 3P treatment centers 2 to 4 years after treatment?
Well, I think, that's the part of what we're trying to do with this research project, right? But one thing that I can say is that we have, anecdotally, but we have such a vibrant and alumni population who can, and the push during COVID that actually made us be much more virtual than we used to be, kind of enhanced that, because so many previous clients of ours, no matter where they left and moved to, have engaged in this platform, and it's amazing. And like Danielle said, of course, the longer they engage, the more successful they tend to be. But this I think that's a huge sign of a great program is their alumni engagement, and we see it for years, literally years.
Great. Tamar has got her hand up. You want to raise your question, Tamar?
Unmute. You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We live in India since 1990, and I worked with marginalized Indian women, and substance abuse, especially among men, is like really, really terrible, and the whole family suffers. And about the only treatment in our area is anti-abuse. So there's really no other treatment. And I'm just wondering how this approach for treatment, if it's spread like to developing countries, and if so, what's if there's any nuances that that are used or not. And so I'm basically asking a question from a cross-cultural perspective. I'm wondering if this is sort of a North American kind of treatment approach, or if it's spread.
I'll give a shot at that. At the annual conference for the three principles in London in June, and this wasn't people who are involved in treatment of addiction, but there were people from 38 different countries there. So this understanding of the three principles has gone pretty international in that sense. But in terms of treatment, it's still not even that extensive in the United States. It is more individual, but there are a few treatment centers. And in the UK, and I don't know what about Scandinavian countries. Jacqueline, are you familiar with other programs in other parts of Europe? Because I'm not familiar with any programs in developing countries, to be honest. I've had contact with a guy from Brazil who was trying to start something there, but I don't know what happened with that. And we've done a little bit of work in South Africa, but not necessarily in the addiction field.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
I've been to India though, and I've spoken in India.
Cool.
In the year 2000, the guy who, I don't know, he's the wealthiest man in India. I can't remember his name now.
Ambani?
Yeah, his brother-in-law read Slowing Down at the Speed of Life and had me be a keynote speaker for YPO of India, Young Presidents Organization.
Cool.
That was a long time ago, so I got to go to your lovely country and just absolutely fall in love with India.
Oh, nice.
One of the greatest adventures of my and my wife's life was to go to India. So there's a little bit of three principles in the companies there.
Very good. Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Any other questions before we move on to the next panel? We can
There
take
are
one.
3 questions in the chat bar, Joe.
Okay.
You don't see them because they're coming to me, but
I can't. Okay, I can't see.
okay. So Katie's asking, what informs your length of stay?
That would be
I'd love to speak to this because that has been, for us from the very beginning, one of the core pieces of who we are. There's a very, there's kind of this expectation of like 30 days or 45 days just in the industry of that's being like the standard. And we never wanted to have any set length of stay. And that was always core to who we are, because believing that we're meeting the person where they're at, and especially with the principles and this understanding, I mean, again, one thought changes everything, right? So you could have someone who walks through the door and it's like, oh, all right, I'm good. It's, and if we all agree and everybody sees that and that's genuine and that's authentic, then amazing. That's what we're here for. But then also we may have someone with us for, 6 months. We've had someone for 6 months. So for us, and obviously I can only speak to Broadbeach, but for us, the length of stay is completely dependent on the person who's standing in front of us and where they're at and what they need. So yeah, hopefully that answers at least for us.
That's entirely true for us as well. The only piece, and this is just the unfortunate reality, we do work with a diverse payer mix, so not nearly as many self-pay as what the ladies at Malibu are seeing. So unfortunately, the payer, the insurance carrier, can also dictate that at times. Which is, we do a ton of fundraising and that kind of stuff to be able to scholarship folks who their insurance companies just saying now, no more, and we can continue. But yeah, that piece can be difficult.
Well, unfortunately, we've run over time, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to move on. And our next panel, which is the health of the helper, and Amy Johnson and Sandy Crott are going to be the moderators of that. So I'll let them introduce the panel and the purpose of this conversation.